The night air clung to the small apartment like a second skin, humid, heavy, filled with the smell of street food and exhaust fumes. Elijah sat on the edge of his worn couch, his uniform still damp with sweat from his second shift. It was nearly midnight. The silence in his apartment wasn't peaceful, it was hollow. Just the soft hum of the fridge, the occasional bark from a neighbor's dog, and the quiet dread of waking up in 5 hours to do it all over again. Then his phone buzzed. It was a message from Kaito, his best friend since grade school. "Dude. Watch this now. Seriously." WTF attached was a link to a video on a streaming platform Elijah had never heard of. Curious, he tapped it. The screen lit up with footage from his parents' backyard. He recognized the rusting barbecue pit, the string lights he'd bought last Christmas, the wooden table he spent a weekend sanding down because his dad was too lazy to fix it. His sister, Mara, was clearly the one recording, though she wasn't visible. The camera sat on a lawn chair, angled just enough to catch the whole patio. It started innocent enough, laughter, clinking glasses, the low thrum of music. Then his mother's voice rang out, sharp and cutting. "You know the only reason we even have this barbecue is because of Eli, right? He pays for everything. Too bad he's wasting his life doing whatever it is he does." "What is it again?" "Oh, right. Sweeping floors and delivering burritos." Laughter exploded around the table. Elijah blinked. His throat tightened. "He's convinced he is doing something noble," Mara chimed in. "Like, I'm helping my family," she mimicked, adding a nasal whine to mock his voice. "He doesn't even realize we're just letting him do it. He thinks we need him. He does need to grow up," his father added with a scoff. "2 jobs and still can't afford his own damn car. What kind of man spends his 20s scrubbing toilets for rich people?" Another round of laughter. Wine glasses clinked. Someone muttered, "Pathetic." The audio stayed clear, crisp, cruel. Elijah's ears rang. He paused the video. The silence returned, but it felt different now, like the air had been punched out of the room. His heart was racing, a cold sweat breaking along his brow. He rewound the clip and played it again, making sure he wasn't imagining things. He wasn't. This wasn't just teasing. It was contempt. He hadn't been invited to the barbecue, just family, Mara had told him dismissively. But he paid for the food. He paid for the propane in the grill. He paid the electric bill that powered those goddamn fairy lights. He even paid for the folding chairs Mara had picked out on some overpriced catalog. And this was what they really thought of him. Elijah worked 2 jobs. He woke up at 4:30 a.m. every morning to take the bus to his janitorial shift at an upscale tech office. He cleaned windows, scrubbed bathrooms, and made sure the coffee bar gleamed for people who would never learn his name. After that, he spent 6 hours delivering food on a bike with broken gears. It wasn't glamorous. But it was honest. And it had paid their bills, month after month, year after year. Electricity? Elijah. Water and gas? Elijah. His father's truck insurance, even though the damn thing hadn't run in a year? Elijah. Groceries when Mara's influencer gig didn't pay? Elijah. Internet, so they could post their faux perfect lives online? Elijah. It hadn't started this way. He remembered the first time his mom asked him for help. He was 21, fresh out of high school, no degree, working part-time at a car wash. "Sweetheart, just this once. The gas bill's high this month." He said yes. Of course he did. It was 1 bill. A small one. Then it became 2. Then 5. Then suddenly it wasn't a request anymore. It was a habit. An expectation. A system where his money disappeared into a black hole of their irresponsibility while they kept pretending they were fine. His phone buzzed again. This time from Mara herself. "LOL. You saw it? Chill, it's just a joke." Elijah stared at the message, unblinking. A joke? The bile rose in his throat. He didn't know what made him angrier, the words, or the fact that she thought that explanation would work. He tapped her name and hit call. She answered immediately. "Hey, big bro." Her tone was sugary sweet, fake as her filtered selfies. "You posted a video of mom calling me pathetic," Elijah said, voice flat. Mara giggled. "Oh my god, people love it. The comments are gold. You think it's funny? Dude, lighten up. You always take things so seriously. It's just mom being mom. You know how she gets after a few drinks." Elijah's hand tightened around the phone. "You think it's funny that I work 70 hours a week so you can sip mimosas on a patio I paid for? "Oh my God," she groaned. "Here we go. Look, no one made you pay for stuff, okay? That's on you. You offered. You kept offering. So maybe take some responsibility." It was like someone poured ice water down his spine. "So I'm an idiot for helping. I mean," she laughed. "Kind of?" Elijah sat perfectly still, staring into the wall of his apartment. There were cracks in the paint. Stains on the ceiling. His shoes were worn through at the toes. But everything he had, he earned. No one else bled for it. He breathed in once. Exhaled slow. "Okay," he said. "I'm done." "Done with what?" Mara scoffed. "All of it." She snorted. "Yeah, right. You say that every time you get your feelings hurt. You'll be back next week paying for Mom's phone plan like always." Elijah didn't answer. He just ended the call. Then he opened every app linked to his bank account. He canceled the utility auto payments. Removed his card from the shared family grocery account. Logged into the insurance site and removed his name from his father's policy. Then he blocked their numbers. One by one. Mother. Father. Mara. And when his phone was finally silent, he stared at it for a while, waiting to feel regret. But all he felt was quiet. Real quiet. Not guilt-soaked silence. But peace. The next 3 days came and went in a blur of unread messages and unanswered calls. Elijah didn't respond. Not to the 11 voicemails from his mother. Not to the flood of text bubbles from his father, filled with capital letters and clumsy typos. Not to Mara's infuriating string of hello? And eye-roll emojis. He wasn't just ignoring them. He was done. He woke up early, went to work, came home, slept. And for the first time in years, there wasn't a surprise bank alert. No emergency bill forwarded with a pleading just this once. No voice in the back of his head reminding him that the gas was due or Mara needed money for a brand collab. It felt surreal. And then the knocking started. He had just finished a shift, still in his stained gray work shirt, when it thundered against his apartment door, sharp, angry, relentless. Elijah opened the door. His mother stood there, cheeks flushed and lips tight with fury. Her necklace, one he'd bought her for Christmas 3 years ago, glinted in the hallway light. "Elijah James," she snapped. "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" He leaned casually against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Hi, Mom. Don't you hi, Mommy." She stormed inside without waiting, heels clacking against the floor. "The electricity was shut off today. Do you know what that means? I had to eat dinner in the dark." Elijah closed the door, slowly, deliberately. "Oh no," he said. "Did the wine still taste okay without the overhead lighting?" She whipped around. "Excuse me? You're mad about the lights," Elijah said, voice cold. "I'm mad about the years I lit your house up while you laughed behind my back." "Oh, for heaven's sake," she waved a hand, as if brushing off a mild inconvenience. "That video was nothing. Just a joke. You know how people talk after a few drinks." "No, Mom," Elijah said. "That wasn't just a joke. That was you. That was all of you. It wasn't even hidden. You knew Mara was recording. You were posing for the camera." She scoffed. "So what, you're punishing us now? Is that it? You think you're teaching us a lesson? You think you're better than us?" "I think," he said, stepping forward, "that I finally understand who I've been giving my life to. And it's not family, it's a group of entitled freeloaders who thought I'd never grow a spine." Her face twisted in rage. "You ungrateful little sh." He held up a hand. "Don't. I've given you enough. You don't get to call me names in my own home. I gave you life. And I gave you electricity," he snapped. "Looks like we're even." The words hung in the air like a fire alarm just pulled. For a second, she didn't know what to say. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes narrowed. "You think this is funny? Letting us sit in the dark like some kind of lesson?" "I think it's fair," Elijah said. "Because the only thing I ever asked for was respect. And the only thing I never got was that." "You'll regret this," she hissed, stepping closer. "One day, when we're gone and buried, you'll realize what you've done. Don't come crawling back crying at our graves." He tilted his head. "If you wanted to be remembered fondly, you should have tried harder when you were alive." That was the final blow. She turned, stormed toward the door. Her heels slammed into the tile like bullets. "Ungrateful," she muttered. "You think you're so noble? You're a damn janitor. A glorified errand boy. Nothing special. Just a warm body in a uniform." Elijah opened the door for her. "Thanks for reminding me," he said. "Now get out." She walked into the hallway, turned back one last time, and sneered, "You're going to die alone." He smiled, tired but calm. "I'd rather die alone than keep living with leeches." Then he shut the door in her face. The apartment was still. He stood there for a long time, forehead against the wood, hands trembling, not with fear, but with the shock of finally saying it. He said the truth out loud. To her face. And she couldn't twist it. She couldn't guilt him. And she couldn't change it. That night, the messages doubled. Mara went full drama queen. Mara, 8:44 p.m. Wow. You seriously told Mom to get out? Who are you right now? Mara, 9:01 p.m. Guess we know who's the favorite son now. Spoiler alert, it ain't you. Mara, 10:13 p.m. You better come fix this. You've made Mom cry. Real tears. Like, ugly crying. Then came the guilt wave. Mom, 10:47 p.m. Sweetheart, we didn't mean it. You know how family talks. We love you. Mom, 11:03 p.m. Please don't let one bad night ruin everything. Think of all the good times. Elijah put his phone on silent. He poured himself a cheap drink. Turned on a fan. Sat by the window. And for the first time in what felt like years, he didn't feel poor. He didn't feel pathetic. He felt clean. Like someone had finally wiped the grime off his spirit. By the time Sunday came, the day of the weekly family dinner, Elijah had no plans to show up. He hadn't RSVP'd. He hadn't responded to the barrage of texts from his aunt and cousins trying to act neutral, hoping he'd let bygones be bygones. He was midway through folding laundry when a text from his cousin Lila lit up. Lila, hey. You seriously not coming? You might want to check Mara's story. He frowned. Opened his phone. Tapped into Mara's social media. A photo, the entire family at the long dinner table in their dining room, the one he bought them last Christmas when the old one collapsed under the weight of years and rot. Everyone was smiling. Toasting. Eating. Family means everything, well, almost everyone, and in the comments. At Rando_fan. Where's your brother? Mara. Oh, Eli finally grew up and stopped whining about money. I guess family just isn't his thing. Elijah stared at the screen, heart pounding. He grabbed his keys. Elijah didn't knock. He walked right through the front door of his parents' home, their home, the one he had quietly kept from foreclosure, the one with the roof repairs he paid for, the one with electricity humming again thanks to a cousin's pity. The laughter died the second he stepped inside. They were all gathered around the dinner table. His table. The one he'd ordered, assembled, and delivered last December when the old one had splintered during a New Year's gathering. Now, it was covered in food he hadn't paid for. And yet, somehow, he still felt like he owned the whole scene. Mara's eyes widened when she saw him, but it didn't take her long to mask it with a smirk. Well, she said, raising her wine glass with a mocking tone. Look who decided to crash the party. Finally out of your cleaning closet? Elijah didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He looked around slowly, meeting every face, his father, his mother, his uncles and aunts, cousins who'd ghosted him until they needed rides or rent money. Every single one of them went quiet under his gaze. Then he looked at his mother. I have one question, Elijah said, his voice low, steady. Why? She blinked. Why what, sweetheart? He stepped into the room, past a tray of untouched rolls, toward the center of the table. Why did you stop paying your own bills? Why did you make me responsible for your life? Did you ever even ask yourself what that was doing to me? Or did you just decide I was easier to bleed than a bank? There was a long silence. She sighed dramatically, like he'd just asked about the weather during a funeral. Oh my God, Elijah, you're still on this? You're throwing a tantrum over a few bills? That's what this is? A few? He laughed bitterly. I've worked 2 jobs for years. I haven't had a vacation in a decade. And all of it, every hour, every ache, every blister, was so you could sip imported wine in a backyard I paid to keep lit. Mara rolled her eyes. Ugh, here comes the martyr monologue. Let me guess, cue the violin music? Elijah turned to her, the air around him going still. You posted a video mocking me. Called me pathetic. And now you want to pretend like I'm the one overreacting? It was a joke, she said sharply. Jesus, take a Xanax. Everyone jokes around. You're just too sensitive. Then why'd you delete it? Elijah asked calmly. Mara's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. He took another step forward. Yeah. That's right. I saw it before you took it down. You didn't delete it because it was wrong. You deleted it because the comments were wrong for you. One of their cousins, a younger boy with wide, guilty eyes, looked down at his plate. The shame was contagious now, spreading through the table like fog. Elijah turned back to his mother. You always said family was about helping each other. But you never wanted help. You wanted control. You wanted me exhausted and grateful for scraps. Because if I ever stood on my own, you'd lose the ATM you trained to thank you for withdrawing his soul. That's not true, she snapped. It's exactly true, Elijah said, pulling a folded sheet of paper from his back pocket and placing it on the table. His father, who had stayed oddly quiet, picked it up. His brow furrowed. What is this? Mara leaned over to peek. The color drained from her face. Elijah waited. He knew what it said, he'd seen it weeks ago. It was a copy of their will. The entire estate, what little there was going to Mara. Not a mention of Elijah. Not a dollar. Not a single line acknowledging the years he spent carrying them on his back. Finally, his mother spoke. Where did you get that? Does it matter? He asked. What matters is that I know. And now everyone does. His father looked away. Ashamed. His mother, however, didn't skip a beat. Stop being dramatic. You don't even like responsibility. Mara knows how to manage money. You wouldn't have done anything with it anyway. Manage? Elijah asked, genuinely stunned. She spends more money on fake eyelashes than I spend on groceries. Mara stood now, arms crossed. Oh my God, get over it. You were never really part of this family anyway. You just hide in your apartment, work your dead-end jobs, and act like a saint. You don't live, Elijah. You just exist. He turned to her, voice calm. And without me, you'd all be in the dark, literally and figuratively. Then he looked around again, the silence almost reverent now. You want to know what's pathetic? He asked. You all, sitting here pretending I'm the problem. Pretending I abandoned you when the truth is, I've been the only one holding this entire circus together. He grabbed the edge of his chair. Then, without another word, he lifted the plate in front of him. And threw it. The porcelain shattered against the far wall with a crash that made everyone flinch. Aunt Clara gasped. A fork clattered to the floor. Someone whispered, "Holy hell." His mother jumped to her feet. What is wrong with you? He smiled, just a little. Nothing. For the first time in my life. Nothing at all. Then he walked out. The door slammed behind him like punctuation. He didn't speed away. Didn't scream into the night. He walked slowly to his car, like a man who had just placed a heavy load down after years of carrying it. Inside the car, he sat still for a long time. His hands trembled. His breath came fast. His heart thundered. But underneath the adrenaline, there was peace. He had spoken. Not for forgiveness. Not for sympathy. But for himself. By the time he got home, the calls had already begun. Mom. How dare you embarrass us like that? Mara. You are insane. Good luck finding someone to take care of you when you're old. Dad. We need to talk. He blocked all three again. That night, he made a cheap dinner, poured himself a drink, and watched a dumb sci-fi movie alone. And for once, he didn't wonder if anyone needed him. He didn't think about bills that weren't his. He just existed. And it felt incredible. The next morning, Elijah woke to 36 unread messages. His phone, silenced the night before, now buzzed with rage, guilt, and desperation. As if his family had flipped through an emotional Rolodex in the night and decided to try every card at once. Mom, we're family. Families fight. But they make up. You've made your point, now be mature and come talk to us. Mara, you've embarrassed us in front of the entire family. Don't expect anyone to have your back after this. Dad, you can't just storm out and expect everything to go back to normal. Call me. Now. Elijah scrolled without reading further. He didn't need to. He'd seen the playbook before. First came the shock. Then the guilt. Then the threats. What they hadn't expected was silence. His silence. And as the days passed, it started to drive them mad. By day 3, the messages shifted tone. Mom, I raised you. I gave you everything. This is how you repay me? Mara, don't come crawling back when your delivery app collapses and you're out of money. Dad, you want to be selfish? Fine. But don't show up at the funeral pretending you ever cared. He deleted them all. Not with anger, but with clarity. Because he knew something now: people who truly loved you didn't throw tantrums when you set boundaries. They listened. They adapted. His family? They weren't upset because they missed him. They were upset because they lost control. By the end of the week, the texts had slowed. But the fallout had just begun. Elijah came home from his shift late Friday to a voicemail from his cousin, Jordan, the only one in the family who hadn't turned into a parasite. "Hey man, just wanted to give you a heads up. Your mom's been calling around asking for help with the utility bills. Apparently, their internet got cut off this morning. Then the gas. Rachel had some kind of meltdown. Screamed at the power company like it was their fault. Thought you might want to know." Elijah sat down at the kitchen table, peeling off his work gloves. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. But he did feel something close to satisfaction. For years, he'd been the invisible scaffolding holding their lives up. The one who always said yes. The one who bent until he was practically broken. Now? They had to stand on their own. He made himself a cheap dinner, took a long hot shower, and let the quiet settle in again. This time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. 2 days later, another call came. This time from his cousin Lila, barely holding back laughter. "So Rachel tried to hit up Grandma for money," she said, voice wheezing. "Actually went over there crying about how hard life is and how you're punishing the family over some dumb joke." Elijah raised his eyebrows. "How'd that go?" Lila snorted. "Grandma told her to get a job and then slammed the door. Told her the same thing she told me when I turned 18, you don't get fed for free after you stop being cute." Elijah chuckled, shaking his head. Lila continued, "Your dad's truck got towed this morning. Expired tags, unpaid tickets, and no insurance. Rachel's Instagram has been dead silent since Saturday. And your mom? She's been asking around for loans, but no one's biting." "Because they're finally seeing what I saw," Elijah said softly. "They are," Lila agreed. "And honestly, I'm proud of you." The words hit him like a warm breeze. Nobody in the family had ever said that to him before. "Thanks," he murmured. "That means more than you know." Later that week, he passed by a bookstore on his walk home and paused at a window display. There was a quote printed in big block letters across a poster. "When you remove the poison, the body finally starts to heal." He stood there for a long time, watching people pass, cars blur by, horns honk in the distance. And he realized something. He was healing. Not because they apologized. Not because they understood. But because he'd stopped needing them to. That night, he sat on his balcony with a drink in hand. The streetlights flickered below, and the stars blinked faintly above. It wasn't much, just an old folding chair and a chipped coffee table, but it was his. And for once, he wasn't waiting for an alert, a request, a sudden emergency. He was still. Untouched. Unneeded. And it felt perfect. Then, his phone buzzed again. A new number. He answered, expecting some telemarketer or spam caller. Instead, it was Mara. He recognized her voice instantly, even through the static. "Hey," she said, almost too casual. He didn't answer. She filled the silence. "So. Things are kind of bad. Like, really bad." He still said nothing. "I'm not calling to fight," she said quickly. "Or to guilt you. I don't know. We need help. Mom's not saying it, but she's scared. Dad doesn't know what to do. I thought maybe." He interrupted, voice flat, "Why call from a different number?" "Because you blocked me," she said, sounding genuinely surprised. "I didn't think you'd pick up. Should have taken the hint." A long pause. "Look," she said, her voice faltering. "I know I was cruel. We all were. But I didn't think you'd actually cut us off. I thought you'd just be mad for a while. Then get over it." "That's the problem," Elijah said, his tone sharpening. "You never thought I was capable of standing up for myself. You always assumed I'd crawl back." "I was wrong," she said quietly. "You were." Another pause. "Can we fix it?" she asked. Elijah stared out into the night, the city lights stretching beyond the trees. "You can start by fixing your own mess." Then he hung up. No screaming. No dramatic finale. Just a click. The next morning, Elijah drafted a short message. Not a rant. Not a speech. Just closure. To Mom, Dad, and Mara. "I gave you everything. You laughed. You took. You mocked. Now, I'm giving you nothing. Live with it." He hit send. Then blocked the new number. He didn't need to see the reaction. Because this wasn't about them anymore. It was about him. Finally. 6 months. That's how long it had been since Elijah walked out of that dinner, since the plate shattered and the illusion of family cracked with it. In that time, the messages had stopped. The guilt trips had faded. The silence that followed wasn't tense or lonely, it was peaceful. Sustained. Like the end of a thunderstorm that had raged for years. He didn't just survive it. He thrived. He dropped his second job. The long nights delivering food were done. No more double shifts. No more sore legs and sleepless dawns. He found a single, full-time janitorial job at a university campus. The pay wasn't extravagant, but it was consistent. The benefits were solid. The students were polite. Some even knew his name. He had evenings free. He read books. Started going to a local gym. Took slow walks through the city with a pair of earbuds and a playlist full of old-school jazz and lo-fi beats. His apartment, though still small, looked brighter. Cleaner. Lighter. Because there was no one leeching from it anymore. His bank account had stabilized for the first time in years. Not because he was making more, but because he'd finally stopped pouring it into a bottomless pit of family emergencies. He bought himself a new mattress. Replaced the cracked phone screen. Bought a cheap bike with working gears and took it out every weekend along the riverside. He had learned how to live. And for the first time in forever, he was doing it for himself. The updates about his family came in only through cousin Lila, who respected his distance. She never pushed. Just passed along details now and then. Rachel burned through the rest of the money your parents gave her. Tried to get a loan using Dad's name. Didn't go well. Your mom and dad had to cancel their cable subscription. Your dad's selling his tools online. They're blaming the economy. Grandma told Rachel she's too old to be entitled. I nearly died. Each time, Elijah would listen silently. Then shake his head and move on. He felt nothing. No pleasure. No pity. Just space. Empty of obligation. Empty of shame. One evening, after a quiet day at work, Elijah received a letter in his mailbox. Not a text. Not an email. A physical letter. The handwriting was unmistakable, his mother's. He stared at it for a while, debating. Then opened it. Eli. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if you'll care. But I needed to write it. You were right. About everything. We took advantage of you. We mocked what we should have respected. We leaned on you because it was easy. Because you never pushed back. Because deep down, I think I knew you loved us too much to say no. And when you finally did say no, we weren't angry that you left. We were angry that we couldn't make you come back. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just want you to know that if you ever choose to speak to us again, the door is open. And if you don't, I understand. Love. Mom. He read it twice. There were no excuses. No manipulation. No requests. Just words. Honest and raw. He folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer. He didn't call. Didn't write back. Not out of bitterness, but because he didn't need to. He wasn't angry anymore. He just wasn't interested in returning to something he'd finally escaped. Forgiveness didn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes, it just meant peace. A month later, Elijah visited a bookstore and picked up a slim journal. The cover was plain, gray, soft-bound, unassuming. He didn't know why he bought it. He'd never kept a journal before. But that night, sitting on his balcony, he wrote. I was never the failure they said I was. I just belonged to a different blueprint. And I built something they never could, boundaries. They mistook obedience for love. And I mistook love for sacrifice. Now I know better. And I am better. And that has to be enough. He closed the journal. Smiled. Took a sip of tea. Some nights, he still thought about them, not with longing, but with a detached curiosity. Like a dream that used to haunt him but now felt faded and distant. He wondered if they still talked about him. If Mara still posted curated snapshots of dinners she didn't pay for. If his dad still cursed at the news, blaming the world for problems he created. If his mom still kept up appearances, still wore the necklace he gave her, even while pretending it meant nothing. He didn't miss them. He just didn't need to wonder anymore. Because he had everything he needed. His own space. His own peace. His own name, no longer spoken like a punchline or a burden. One afternoon, as he helped a professor carry boxes into an office, she paused to hand him a bottle of water. You know, she said. You always show up. Always help. You remind me of someone who gets it, what work means. What consistency means. He blinked, unsure how to respond. She smiled. That matters more than people think. He nodded, a soft smile tugging at his lips. Thanks, he said. That means more than you know. That night, he made a simple dinner. Watched the movie with the lights low. Wrote a few more pages in his journal. And before bed, he stood by the window. The city glowed quietly beneath him. He placed a hand over his chest, felt the steady rhythm of a life that finally belonged to him. And whispered, not to anyone else, but to himself. I'm proud of you. Final lines. Elijah didn't get revenge. He didn't expose anyone. He didn't beg for apologies. He didn't demand closure. He just walked away. And that was louder than anything he could have said. He built a life not out of spite, but out of self-respect. A life that didn't require validation. A life that didn't depend on who remembered his name. Because he remembered it. And for the first time ever, that was enough.